Hey everyone, 2022 is already done, and all things considered, I think it was a pretty good year in terms of movies. I think this was probably the best year of the new decade so far, so making the list of my top 10 favorite movies of the year was actually difficult, but very fun nonetheless. This was the first year since pre-pandemic where movies actually felt normal, where you can just go to a theater at any time and check out a movie. I watched a lot of movies this year, in fact, more than I ever had in a single year. However, before I get into the ranking, I just want to be clear, I haven't seen every single movie I wanted to this year. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to see some things that I think could have been on this list. I will list those films on the screen now. As I do get to watching these movies, I'll update the list on my Letterboxd account, which is linked in the description. Now, because this was such a great year for movies, and because I watched so many movies this year, I have quite a few honorable mentions. I could list a ton of movies that I liked here, but I have 8 which I consider honorable enough to be mentioned, and that maybe could have had a chance to make this list. They will be listed from least closest to making the list to closest to making the list. The first film is Glass Onion, the sequel to Knives Out. While not being quite as good as the original, Glass Onion is still a really great time and has a great cast with some more really good twists. Next is Senior, Robert Downey Jr.'s documentary about his father. This is easily the best documentary I watched this year, and I'm not even that big of a fan of RDJ. I think he put together a really enjoyable, sweet, and emotional doc that I wish was high on this list, honestly. Then I have Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Say what you want about this film, but I loved it, and I had so much fun with it. It was hilarious, it critiqued Gen Z in a really good way, and I thought the ending really worked. Next is Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, probably the sweetest, most tender thing I've seen all year long. A movie that has such a warm and charming feeling, a simple one, but an easy one to fall in love with. Then Del Toro's Pinocchio. We've seen the story done and redone so many times at this point, I cannot believe I love this one as much as I did. It looks absolutely stunning, has some excellent voice acting, and one of the best musical scores of the year. This is probably my favorite adaptation of Pinocchio. The Batman. This movie completely encapsulates what the character of Batman should be. It's dark, gritty, and mysterious. I don't think I'd say this is the best Batman movie, but it may be the best portrayal of the Batman character we've seen on the big screen. Top Gun Maverick. Yes, I'm sorry this one isn't in the top 10, but I think the fact that it's even on this list at all is impressive because I went in with absolutely zero expectations and I came out with a huge smile on my face. Rewatching it at home wasn't quite as great an experience, but seeing it in the theater was incredible. And finally, The Fabelmans, a movie that was so close to making this list, but in the end just missed. It's a movie that completely understands what inspiration is and just has a magical feeling to it. I'm really sad it won't be able to make it onto the list. I've already talked a lot, but now it's finally time to get into my top 10 movies of 2022. If there's any film on my list you've never heard of, it's probably this one. Girl Picture, which is a terrible name by the way, is a Finnish film that I was able to catch in the theater when on vacation in Finland over the summer, and I absolutely fell in love with it. It's fun, it's sweet, and it feels so personal to everyone who was a part of it. The screenplay is awkward and clumsy, but in a really good way, like in a real, genuine way. The cinematography is really nice. There's one specific shot that has stuck with me all year long since I watched this movie. The performances by all the 3 leads are fun and felt like there was a ton of care and thought put into them. This is also some of the best I've seen relationships, whether it be romantic or just a friendship, portrayed in any movie all year long. How quickly your life can change because of your devotion to one person, how that can lead to both positive and negative side effects. I'm begging you, please check this one out. It's been available to rent in the US for a while now, and probably the same for other countries, though I'm not sure. Even if you don't like it as much as I did, I'd say it's worth a watch. I honestly have very similar things to say about Cha Cha Real Smooth as I did about Girl Picture. This movie is incredibly sweet and manages to feel real. It made me laugh a bunch, but hit pretty hard during the emotional beats. The screenplay is really great, the performances all around were really good, and the movie portrays relationships in a really good way. While tackling similar themes, I felt this one hit a bit closer to home though, which is why it's high on the list. I'm not really sure why. Maybe because this is an American production and I felt like I could relate to it more? I'm not sure. Cooper Raiff wrote, directed, and acted in this movie, which is pretty impressive. I do find it a bit funny that he wrote the lead character as a great guy that everyone loves and then decided to give himself that role, but that's just a minor nitpick and it doesn't really have anything to do with the actual movie. This is just such an easy watch. It's one of the few on this list where I feel like I could just throw it on at absolutely any time and sit down and enjoy it. Is this a hot take? I'm not really sure, but I really loved White Noise. Most of the reviews I've seen for it have been pretty mixed, and based off some of the trailers and stuff, I wasn't really sure if I would like it, but I really did. I've never read or even heard anything about the original novel that the film is based on, so this played out much differently than how I thought it would, but I'm really happy because it worked, at least for me. The film tells an interesting story which deals with some very important topics and themes like life, death, love, and even religion in a very effective and meaningful way, but also in a very humorous and intelligent way. The screenplay is far from realistic, but it's fun. It's fun to watch these characters converse with each other in the way that they do, and the way the lines are delivered is perfect. The film is pretty appealing to the eye because of some of the colors and interesting concepts it uses in terms of cinematography. The credit scene is fantastic, and Adam Driver and Greta Gerwig both gave wonderful performances. Really hope creative directors are going to continue to be given money in order to make the projects they really want, but based off the minimal success of this and some other projects, I'm a bit worried. But this one kept me entertained while simultaneously being an absurd, electric, and philosophical movie. I will definitely be rewatching it soon. Tar is one of those movies that I really loved but really don't know how to talk about. Everything about it feels so precise and so exact. Like absolutely everything has a meaning and a reason to be there. Everything feels so real. I know I'm not the only one who thought this might be the actual story of a real person. The screenplay is maybe a bit pretentious but still flawless. Todd Field's direction is also stellar, and Cate Blanchett ties it all together with her absolute masterclass of a performance, which I don't have to talk about because you've already heard everything about it, but I will say I wouldn't mind at all if she won the Oscar for this. The movie is so scarily quiet in the way it's telling its story, but ultimately comes off as very loud in what it's saying. It's a geniusly smart and understated, subtle character study that feels just like something that would happen in real life. It's definitely a tough sell getting someone to watch this movie, but it was worth every single second of my time. I cannot wait to rewatch and revisit this movie soon in order to completely understand the complexities of it all and maybe make me love it even more. Triangle of Sadness is one of the best theater experiences I had all year long. This is one of the most unsubtle movies I have ever seen, but that really doesn't matter because you have so much fun with it that you don't even realize. I'd probably say this is the funniest movie I watched all year long. I don't know if another film made me laugh as much as this one did. The second act, which takes place on a yacht, is absolutely spectacular. There's a lot going on, but it is hilarious and fun and captivating all at the same time. The third act feels like a completely different movie because it kind of is, but I thought it was great as well. It adds to some of the messaging that it had started to present earlier in the film in a super effective way. Dolly DeLeon's performance is one of my personal favorites of the year. That scene, if you know the movie, you know what I'm talking about, is one of the funniest scenes all year long, and I think Ruben Östlund's direction is really incredible. I'm still not completely sure what I think about the ending, but it doesn't really take away from the rest of the movie for me. Aftersun probably deserves to be even higher on this list. It might just be the best movie I watched all year long. It's ridiculously simple, but is so impeccably crafted. It's extremely careful in the way it builds itself up, but it eventually concludes in a way that is enough to rip anybody to shreds. This is a completely different movie on rewatch and is so much more powerful and affecting. I picked up on so many more little details that made the already heartbreaking conclusion 10 times more heartbreaking than it was before. Paul Mescal's performance in the lead role is easily one of the best of the year. It's incredibly subtle but incredibly effective. The direction by Charlotte Wells, which, by the way, this is her debut feature, which I just find absolutely insane, is perfect. Everything in this movie, every shot, every camera movement, every little thing that happens on screen means something. When you finally realize what's going on and what's been going on, it's agonizing. This is an incredibly well-made film and absolutely one of the must-watch movies of the year. The Banshees of Inisherin is one of the funniest but simultaneously upsetting and true movies of the year. This movie doesn't try to be pretentious, it doesn't actively try to make you cry, but it does try to be a realistic, simple, miserable portrayal of, well, life. It's way more rewatchable than I thought when I first saw it. I've already watched it twice and plan on checking it out again soon. The cinematography is genuinely really nice, and the musical score by Carter Burwell has grown into easily being one of my favorites of the year. The ensemble cast is fantastic. Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson, and Kerry Condon are all absolutely incredible, but Barry Keoghan is my personal favorite. Martin McDonagh's screenplay is unsurprisingly very good. It hits every beat it needs to, from the comedic moments to the emotional moments, to the joyful moments to the distressing and frustrating ones. The first time I watched it caught me really off guard and hit me real hard, and it was even more effective on a rewatch. It manages to be so captivating and so incredibly enthralling. It's one of those movies that just everybody seems to love, and for very good reason. I feel like it could go on and on about this movie, and maybe I will make a video about it at some point, because I think it's one of the smartest, best told, and most real things I've watched all year. I don't even know how it's possible, but Decision to Leave managed to be the most heartfelt, romantic, emotional, and suspenseful movie of the year all at the same time. Park Chan-wook crafts both a beautifully intricate screenplay and what I personally think is the best direction of the whole year. The cinematography is mesmerizing, the editing is mind-blowing, and the movie features a handful of truly masterful performances. The ending is incredibly smart and effective and feels like the complete accumulation of everything you've watched up until that point. It managed to plant itself in my mind and has kind of stuck there since I watched the movie. Also, the movie is way funnier than I had imagined going in. I found myself chuckling quite a bit. This is one of the easiest movies for me to recommend this year because everything about it is just so well done, and I honestly couldn't see anybody disliking it. It is a cleverly poetic, twisty romance told in a more interesting way than I have ever seen a romance told. I really love this one. Maybe this shouldn't be number 2. It surely isn't the second best movie of the whole year, but I just honestly cannot stop myself from loving Babylon. I have already talked about this movie a lot, but honestly, I feel like I could talk about this movie for hours and hours on end without getting bored. From the outside, the film looks like a crazy, off-the-walls movie about partying with tons of nudity and violence and stuff like that. And yes, maybe it is a bit of that. But on the inside, this is the most wonderful work of art that describes how important movies really are. Diego Calva gives what I honestly think might be my favorite performance from any actor all year long, and Margot Robbie really isn't that far behind. Damien Chazelle's direction is absolutely insane, and the score by Justin Hurwitz is, and I cannot say this enough, maybe one of my favorites of all time. I know that's a crazy statement, but I do not care. The movie unsurprisingly looks great, sounds great, and it just is great. It's also paced impeccably. The fact that this movie is 3 hours long is shocking to me because it only felt like half of that. I gladly would have watched even more. I am so thrilled to eventually rewatch this movie because I just know I'll love it even more than I did the first time. Yes, the screenplay is messy, yes, the narrative is very loose and inconsistent, but Chazelle has always made movies that I feel are for me, and this movie definitely didn't change that. 2022 was a genuinely fantastic year for movies in my opinion, but nothing, and I mean nothing, comes anywhere close to touching the top spot. It's belonged to Everything Everywhere All at Once ever since I first saw it, and I just knew right when I watched it would never ever change. Everything Everywhere All at Once is, I think, why movies were made. To innovate, to change the way we see both film and life, and to do it in a way nobody has ever seen before. I could tell you about how great everything this movie does is, but honestly you've already heard all that. So I think I'd rather talk about my experience with it and how much it means to me. I walked into the theater knowing nothing about it except that it had excellent reviews and it was about the multiverse. I walked out of the theater genuinely feeling different about the way I lived my life and immediately knew this was not just one of the best films I'd seen in a while, but one of the best films I had ever seen. I would give anything to watch this movie for the first time again, to know absolutely nothing about it but to be hit so hard and ultimately be so incredibly uplifted and empowered by one single movie. This movie honestly means everything to me and I am so happy so many people agree. Putting this at number 1 was the easiest thing I had to do in this whole ranking. It was never even a contest. So that's my ranking of my top 10 favorite films of 2022. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave your top 10 or even just your favorite film of the year in the comment section below because I'm really excited to see what you think. I haven't made that many videos this year, but in 2023, my goal is definitely to make a lot more videos and to try and talk about my thoughts on film more often. Once again, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you soon.